It's 1 o'clock. Welcome to the Senate Education public hearing of a couple of bills that we have here. We're going to start with the House Bill number 657, and the prime sponsor is Representative Sellers. So Representative Cordelli, you're covering for him? 667. Am I starting with the right one? Yeah, 667. Relative to health education.
Thank you, Senator. And pleasure to be before the Education Committee again. For the record, Glenn Cordelli, representing Tufton Borough, Wolfboro, and Ossipee in the beautiful Lakes region. And I'm here in regard to House Bill 667. And there was an amendment that replaced the entire bill. So I hope you see the bill as amended by the House.
Amendment 615.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Great. Thank you. So this greatly simplifies the original bill submitted by Representative Sellers. And it pertains to the section of statute in relation to our health curriculum. So basically all this amended bill does is, in many respects, repeats what is in statute and in administrative rules now, specifying that the curriculum should be age appropriate and medically accurate sex education as well. Some of the concepts are taken directly from statute and rules, such as abstinence is in administrative rules, where it says comprehensive sexual education, including instruction relative to abstinence. Healthy relationships is in our health standards. And we added the need for students to be aware of human growth and development. It's fascinating, and the use of a video, I think, really clarifies the growth and development of a child. And really part of that was brought home to me 2 years ago. My grandson was born a month early, missing 1/4 of his heart. So he was in cardiac intensive care for the first 6 months of his life. He had his first open heart surgery at a week old. And another when he was 4 months old, and we'll probably have another when he's 4 or 5 years old. But just to see and be aware of how a child develops in the womb and the development of the vital organs is quite amazing. I learned things. But I think this is a relatively simple bill that I think provides some guidance in terms of curriculum and really repeats and enhances what is in statute and rules currently. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. I see you are not a co-sponsor of the bill, so I appreciate you taking the questions, and congratulations on a new grandchild. That's super fun. So I'm looking at RSA 18910, and it actually has a lot of other topics that are not covered in this amendment, like, for instance, hygiene, sexual violence prevention, child abuse, HIV and AIDS, other sexually transmitted diseases, and oddly enough also includes personal finance literacy instruction. So It looks like this whittles that down and actually leaves out a lot of things that might be important. And I'm curious as to why the House decided to not include evidence-based information for one, and then not mention anything about menstruation or masturbation or use of biologically correct terms. This seems very narrowly focused rather than broadly focused on sexual health.
Right.
So if you could talk about those decisions, I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you. My amendment here really just added a new paragraph to the existing statute. It did not replace anything. It added Roman 2-A, which is a brand new paragraph.
Your follow-up?
Follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. You did mention that abstinence was mentioned in rules. Could you tell us where that is in rules? We're having a little general court website issue right now, and I'm trying to find everything to have it up on screen. Thanks.
It's in the administrative rules. I can give you a copy of it. I think it's in 30640, 2E. And I'll be glad to give you a copy.
Thank you. May I follow up, Madam Chair?
One more follow-up. Thank you.
Sure. So if that's already mentioned in rules, why put it in statute?
I think that rules have to have basis in standards. And so when we're adding this new paragraph, I thought it was important to bring that over from rules so that it had a basis in statute.
Senator Prentice, you had a question?
I do. Thank you, Representative Cordelli, and I too am I'm trying to search the rule out, but my question for you is that this does target in or narrows, addition to this paragraph speaks to, appropriate and medically accurate sexuality education, including instruction relative to abstinence. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Abstinence, adoption, healthy relationships, human growth and development. And as you know, what the rest of it, it says, including this a video. But my question for you, and I went to Catholic school, okay? And in Catholic school, even when we had health education, we talked about reproductive care and birth control. And I think as a preventative measure, especially when it comes to teen pregnancy, unless I am missing something, I'm going to look at the rules right now. If we're going to talk about abstinence and adoption, I think that the full range of, preventing teen pregnancy should be included in here. So I am just pulling the rule up now, but do you have a comment on that?
If you take a look at the health standards, which cover a number of topics, everything from tobacco to sexual education, it does talk about various things in the standards, including healthy relationships and dealing with situations with members of the opposite sex. It's quite quite broad in its coverage of health and mental health in the standards. So I think that some of that might be covered actually in this the state standards for health education. And I can send the committee those standards if you would like.
Yeah, it would be helpful because I am fit. So may I?
Sure.
Thank you, Representative Cordelli. So as I'm looking at this, again, so I'm looking at the rule right now, and then again, this additional paragraph, if we're going to use such specificity, and so I want to look at the health education standards, but we're going to use such specificity here. I don't know why we wouldn't talk specifically, because abstinence is not the only form of birth control. And I think we have to be realistic with our kids in schools today, at home and in schools about what all the options are. So if we're going to be specific in one, I just feel like it's super, super narrow. I'd be interested to look at what you can send me, but I think that, well, that is my preference at this time. Thanks.
I'll send those to you, to the committee this evening.
Perfect, thank you, Representative Cordelli.
Do you have any questions? Sullivan, Abbas? One more question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I actually have a few questions. So with regard to, I want to move into lines 5 and 6. So which shall include presentation of a high-quality computer-generated animation or ultrasound video. First of all, who would be producing that, or where would we be getting that kind of
I think there might
high
be several.
quality?
I'm sorry. I think there might be several on the market out there. I've watched one myself on the internet. It's available on the internet.
Okay, so follow up, Madam Chair.
Follow
Are you saying that that would be under the purview or decision of the Department of Education to choose the video? Or does that go to the local school boards to make a decision on how to implement the curriculum?
I would think that could be a local decision.
The video would be a local decision?
Right.
And would there be a list of vendors that the Department of Education would help, or every local school board has to go out and find something to meet this qualification?
I have not talked to the department about developing any kind of list.
Okay. A follow up, Madam Chair?
Okay.
Back to line 4. The purpose of putting in the 2 words abstinence and adoption, and yet leaving out birth control seems a little bit off the mark for me. Can you tell me why a decision was made not to include information about birth control?
Again, I think some of that might be touched on, not in any specific detail, in the health standards, which curriculum should be developed based on.
So your assertion is that that's covered somewhere else?
In the health standards. It has 4 or 5 bullet items, as I recall, dealing with this general topic.
Yeah, I guess I'm not seeing that.
Yeah,
Can I
I
follow-
don't have a copy of the standards with me. I'm sorry. Actually, I do. I have part of it.
Great.
That is one page from the health standards.
Okay.
Yeah.
The back might be
Oh, I think Senator Sullivan might.
recycled paper,
So-
possibly.
And then I'll go. Thank you. Yes, in fairness. Thank you.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Cordelli. Since the onset of Common Core in the state, isn't it true that many school districts individually and teachers have sought out other curriculum to bring into the classroom that is then approved by the school board or the parents, but they've been using YouTube and other sources to supplement curriculum? Is that accurate?
I believe that is the case. I even remember some of that from my high school days, if you can believe it.
Thank you.
Senator.
They did have videos back then.
Do that have some?
Thank you, Chair Ward, and Representative Cordelli. At the risk of repeating myself, I just want to, I want to go back to this. You wrote this amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so to me, it's just glaring that birth control is not in here, if we are going to be very prescriptive in statute, whether it's in the health standards or not, abstinence, adoption, healthy relationships, human growth, and, and the rest that is written out here, but those items in particular, why wouldn't, given, rates of teen pregnancy, and why wouldn't we talk about prevention? And again, I go back to, I'm 60 years old. And when I was in high school, and age appropriate, I agree with, but when I was in high school, it was actually in junior high school with the nuns, we were talking about all forms of birth control that were available. They took a stance on prevention, and abstinence was not the only form. So I don't know if this was your intention, but it feels to me like that has been excluded and it needs to be added in. Mike? All right. I don't know if you have a response or, in fairness.
I think that there has been curriculum in the schools on sex education for many years. And I am sure that a number of topics are covered in curriculums in the local school districts as well as in the state standards. I was not trying to redesign any curriculum or replace state standards with this paragraph, but simply putting into statute some things that I thought were important, and also replace the original bill that I thought went quite a ways too far.
Quick follow-up. Representative Cordelli, and again, thank you. Would you agree that talking with, in terms of age appropriateness, all forms of birth control is important?
I think that, especially at the high school level, to let them know that contraception is available and is an appropriate means in addition to abstinence.
Okay. Thank you for taking my range of questions and going back into it. I appreciate your time.
Sure, my pleasure.
Anybody?
Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So within, this is the second paragraph to RSA 18910. And actually, and uses, interestingly enough, you've chosen to use the word accurate sexuality education, and which is, another word, another way of saying sex ed. So, and which would be the instruction of the way I have in my research, the instruction of issues relating to human sexuality, encompassing topics like anatomy, sexual activity, reproduction, safe sex, and relationships, with the goal of empowering individuals to make informed and responsible decisions about their sexual health and well-being. So it looks like the purpose of having a sexuality education is to create that broad base of information and the application of critical thinking skills in how that best applies to each person's life, and knowing how bodies work. And what is missing here from this list is no mention of abortion, which is very much a part of reproductive health care. So that's difficult that you have not included that in here. And there's no mention.
I would not consider it reproductive health care.
I think the medical community would disagree with you.
That's fine.
So abortion is healthcare. So not mentioning that as part of accurate sexuality education with the purpose of giving people medically accurate information to make informed, responsible decisions is a misstep.
Right.
So that's missing.
Right.
Reproductive health care, as far as birth control, also missing. Sexually transmitted disease prevention, like condoms, also missing. So this this bill is just has a lot of glaring gaps that would provide, if enacted, would give students, and just to be clear, only public school students, not all students being supported by tax dollars, but just public school students, a very narrow and uninformed sexuality education, leaving them at risk. And without a prescription of where this computer generated animation comes from, and also like who's going to develop that? And if you're going to show ultrasound videos, let's show videos of sexually transmitted diseases. I mean, let's talk about things that can actually happen. This is missing a lot of pieces, Representative. Just so much that it just doesn't hit the mark.
Thank you, Senator Archuleta. I think that we need to take a look at what this bill is doing here. It is not talking about the whole spectrum of up to, from child being sexually active up to adults. This is talking about the gestational development from embryo to fetus through birth, but for the public health student. So I think we need to take a look at what the bill actually is supposed to do. Senator Sullivan, did you have something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was exactly what I was going to say. I think we're
Okay.
outside the scope of what this bill is actually doing. And if this was a concern, if contraception was a concern, why is it only being brought up today? Thank you.
May I? So it's being, so Senator Ward, thank you. Yes, gestation, yeah, your point about gestation,
Mm-hmm.
important, but it also says very specific things in here that are being added to statute that are not in statute. And, respectfully, I mean, I'm bringing it up today because this is for me, this is the place to engage this conversation with sponsors and the public to gain the best understanding to make a decision. So if this is new and it's being added and and there's a disagreement with the sponsor or advocates, this is where I want to vet it out. So gestational age aside, there's very prescriptive, abstinence, adoption, healthy relationships and human growth and development. So if we're going to talk about health curriculum, I think we have to be talking about everything. And again, when I was I think it was in junior high, but age appropriate, I don't think it's age appropriate. I think we should be talking about birth control. We should always be trying to give all of the options to kids for the best, for them to make with their parents the best decisions possible. Thank you.
Senator Sullivan?
Thank you. And Representative Cordelli, I apologize because I feel like the committee wasn't prepared with some of the background prior to the bill. I know I wasn't, so I apologize for myself. But I did find in.
Point of order.
No.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Don't speak for the rest of the committee. Point of order. One member should not be speaking for the committee.
I said, so I will speak for myself. I did say those words.
Hold on a second.
Why don't we just let's take.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I don't,
I'm ready to continue.
let's take a 2-minute recess.
All right.
Let's be respectful.
Madam Chair,
Senator Abbas?
just for a point of clarification, and I understand some of the concerns raised, but in respect to sexually transmitted disease, child abuse, prevention of sexual violence, under RSA 18910, Roman numeral 2, that's actually stated in that section. I know the bill in front of us won't have that. I think some of the internet here today is a little spotty, but some of that is addressed in existing law. Just, I have it on my screen in front of me. I understand the issue of contraception is not directly expressed therein, but some of the concerns raised is existing law. So I just thought it might be.
Senator Sullivan?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Representative Cordelli. Again, I apologize. I did not know that we'd need the background in addition to what you're presenting here, but I did find on the Nashua website that it says, consistent with Department of Education requirements, health and physical education, including instruction about parts of the body, reproduction, and related topics such as sexually transmitted diseases, will be included in the instructional program. Sexual education shall also include instruction relative to absence and sexually transmitted infection, birth control, and gender stereotyping. So this is all in the rules. We don't have the rules in front of us, and I apologize. I should have had them in front of me, but this refers to the New Hampshire Department of Education rules. So that is already included, and I apologize for not having that piece of the information with us. But what you are representing today does not get rid of that. It is an additional piece that will be added to existing law.
Right.
Thank
And if I could just mention that the health standards do go into sexually transmitted diseases and many areas related to sex education.
Yes. Thank you very much, Representative.
Senator Pratt?
Thank you very much, Senator Ward, and I appreciate some of the background in the last few minutes. And I do the Wi-Fi hasn't been great, but I am in the statute, and it does in section 1 talk about sexually transmitted diseases. And even though contraception, birth control is talked about an administrative rule, if we're going to elevate these particular, this is just the last time I'm going to talk about this, and then it's on the record and we'll roll from there. If we're going to elevate these areas in a new section, I think we have to be prescriptive about birth control. So I can see what's already in section 1. I can see what's in section 2. If we're going to add 2A, that's what I'd like. And I do appreciate the background that was shared. So thank you.
Any further questions by any?
Thank you.
And it's actually Knirk, but that's okay. I'll answer to anything. Call me anything. Just don't call me late for dinner. But yes, for the record, my name is Jerry Knirk. I'm a retired, I practiced as an orthopedic spine surgeon for many years and as a non-operative spine physician prior to my second career as a representative in the New Hampshire House of Representatives. This bill represents an intersection of education in our schools and public health and medicine. There is a need for comprehensive sexual education in our schools, but this bill needs to be amended in order to be comprehensive and medically accurate. Now, one of the most important aspects of my work, either as a surgeon or even when I was not a surgeon, was educating patients, educating them about their medical issue and their management choices and the expected outcomes of the choices that they might make. I did this so that they can make an informed decision, an informed choice. I didn't dictate to them what they should do. As a surgeon, if I only educated my patient about the surgical option and failed to inform them about the other management options, or indeed even the option of doing nothing, which is often perfectly fine, I would be committing medical malpractice. It's as simple as that. Medically accurate includes all appropriate options. So this bill addresses the topics of sexuality and fetal development, which would, of course, include pregnancy. That's all right. Okay. Nope. Yes, hi. Anyway, and the bill then goes on to list topics which must be included, but the list is incomplete. And we all know how much trouble we can get into when we make lists and we, it's what's included, what isn't. But in this case, it is shall include these, but it doesn't say what things, it doesn't preclude the other things being included, but it doesn't list them as needing to be included. And it fails to require education regarding all choices and options. So for example, the list includes abstinence, which is an option for avoiding pregnancy and or sexually transmitted diseases. But the other methods of contraception and protection from sexually transmitted diseases are not included, as Senator Altshuler has pointed out. The list, actually, and Senator Prentice as well. The list of required topics includes adoption, which is a perfectly good option when a person cannot care for a child. But the other option of abortion, which is legal in this state, is not included. The inclusion of an animation or ultrasound video showing fetal development will be informative for students. And by the way, the original version of this bill, I don't know if you read it, actually did prescribe, dictate what needed to be done. It was from a group called Live Action, which is an anti-abortion group. That was in the bill. That was amended out. But anyway, this would be very informative for students, but for completeness, it needs to teach about all aspects of pregnancy through the process of labor and delivery, because the ultimate outcome of fetal development is a birth, a full 9 months of pregnancy or shorter in some cases. Our children should be educated about pregnancy, not just fetal development. So the problem with this bill, as I see it, as it's written, is that a school, as it's written and as it's amended, is that a school could teach only limited options, but still meet the statutory requirement. I'm not going to worry about what's in rules and what's in statute, because what we're talking about here is what goes in statute. So that's what we have to focus on. The bill should be amended to strike either all the language in line 4 after the word education, so it would just say shall include age-appropriate and medically accurate sexuality education, period, or it needs to include all the other options. High quality and thorough sexual education is important and should be required of all students in all schools, but it must teach the student all of the facts and different approaches and give them the tools to be able to understand the issues so that they can make informed decisions, precisely like I was doing in the office with a patient. Presenting only some of the facts in a biased way is educational malpractice in my mind, and that's not what we should be doing. So please amend the bill. I would actually be in favor of this bill passing, amended to include comprehensive sexual education with all information and all options being required to be presented. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Knirk, the Honorable Dr. Knirk. At the beginning of your testimony, you outlined how you give your own patients full comprehensive information about whatever procedure it is they're about to embark on. Could you maybe just address what full comprehensive information, like how, could you read that part
Sure.
again?
Well, let's say I had a person who had I was a spine surgeon. They have a disc herniation. They have sciatica. They're miserable. And surgery certainly can be an option. But I would talk to them about the option of surgery, about the option of doing absolutely nothing, because if they did not have a significant neurologic deficit, they can afford to just wait. And indeed, the data shows, and I would had this information. I used a handout that was about 4 or 5 pages long in addition to verbal, so they could go back and digest it. And I would talk about the fact that it's been well demonstrated that over years, the result will be the same, whether you have surgery or not. So it's a matter of whether you can tolerate waiting it out. Again, surgery is quite reasonable for some people, but not everybody needs to have it. And that's very different than how we approach this. Some of us are old enough to remember that when we were in our 30s, Senator Ward, that when somebody had sciatica, they were like, oh, you got a disc herniation, you have to have an operation. We found out later, you don't have to, it's an option. But there's other choices. Epidural steroid injection for symptom control and so on. I would go over all of these go over that so that they knew what their choices were, and then answer their questions. I mean, every person got 1 hour for their initial visit because it's not, they're miserable and they needed help and they needed information and they needed to be able to bounce ideas off and make a good decision. And that's what I did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Before we have a couple more people want to testify, but before we do that, we're going to take a 15 to 20-minute recess. So there'll be nothing going on here for the next 15 to 20 minutes.
You know you're old when you start
Okay,
talking
we're
about
gonna
that.
get back in
Right,
here.
so I do have that three.
Yes, I know you have a
I know,
3:31. Yeah.
keep your butt rolling.
We're out of recess, and I will call Representative Hope Damon.
Is there, Representative Perez is up, is there, did we
Do you-
close out that last?
These are the two things I have. I don't have anybody else.
Good afternoon, Senators. Thank you
Good
for
afternoon.
hearing my testimony. I'm State Representative Hope Damon, Sullivan District 8, 9 towns in Sullivan County. I have 5 school districts in my county, and I am a retired dietitian diabetes educator, so I believe that I know a fair amount about educating about health. And I'm here to speak vigorously against this bill. These are my concerns or considerations. First of all, it violates our longstanding respect for local control of curriculum. I sit on House Education Funding Committee, sat on the full House Education Committee last year, and that founding principle of local control of curriculum comes up in almost every bill we talk about. This seems far too specific to me in what we're telling school districts to do. I very much appreciate the committee and sponsor discussion of what the purpose of the bill is and what should or should not be included if it were to go forward. The sponsor states the purpose is to require public schools to teach about gestational development. If that's the only purpose of the bill, then I don't believe it should include abstinence, adoption, healthy relationships, or anything other than gestational development. It either needs to be all or nothing in what is covered. And similarly, if abstinence, adoption, healthy relationships are going to be included, then it would seem to me that we would have to require comprehensive birth control information. As the honorable, sorry, I've forgotten the name, prior speaker, Dr. Knurk, thank you, noted, in medicine, we don't tell people what to do, we tell them what their options are so that they can make informed choice. And I see this as the same situation. I am also concerned about the audit that is required in the bill, asking DOE to audit every school district's compliance with this subject matter. We don't ask DOE to audit any other subject matter compliance in school districts. Why would we single out one curriculum area, one subject matter to be audited? That seems like a very unusual thing to be asking. And I am concerned about the fiscal impacts of this bill. We all know that fiscal responsibility is a critical role as legislators. I don't believe that this bill is fiscally responsible. We are asking DOE to fund these audits. We're asking the districts to find, purchase, make available this computer-generated video. We all know we are in a fiscal crisis in the upcoming budget biennium, and this does not seem at all to me to be a priority to spend our inadequate revenue on. And lastly, some questions that I hope the committee will explore. What defines a high-quality computer-generated video? What does high quality mean? Is an animated video scientifically accurate or potentially distorted? Is it biologically clear and appropriate education? And high quality doesn't necessarily mean factual. So those are my concerns. I thank you for your time, and I urge you to defeat this bill. It's not necessary,
Thank you very
and it will
much.
be harmful.
Any questions from the committee members? Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative, for taking my question. Could you tell us again, it sounds like you did a little research into auditing, and I heard you, if I heard you correctly in your testimony, say that there is no other curriculum standard that the Department of Education currently does audits to find compliance. This would be the first?
This do not, really does not say to school districts, tell me what you're doing to teach math facts or pick what subject area you want. We have in the statute the subject areas that need to be addressed by school districts, and the school districts with their credentialed professional educators, thank you, determine how best to teach the students that they are working with. And we don't report back what they did on a routine audit basis.
May I follow up, Madam
Senator
Chair?
Sullivan?
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. Are you aware of RSA 18910 that it already exists in law that the Department of Education will survey school districts every biennium based on this criteria?
I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to answer your question with a question. Yes, I'm aware of the statute. Are you asking me or saying to me that the audit is already in the statute?
Yes,
Then I still think it doesn't make sense.
thank you.
Senator Altshuler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. So we see a lot of fourth grade students come here to the Capitol for their New Hampshire curriculum as is part of our state standards. Are you aware if the Department of Education does any sort of survey or audit? And I'm afraid I'm confused as to whether survey and audit are being used interchangeably. Do you have a definition between the two? So it's kind of a two-part question about the fourth graders and the differentiation between survey and audit.
Thank you for the questions. I will just say when the fourth graders come here, that is my favorite part of this job. And I am not aware of the Department of Education surveying how many districts provide that opportunity to their students or not. I know in my district, they don't all come every year. And I believe that that is different across the state when you look at the lists that the visitor centers provide. It's certainly not all the districts in the state. As to the question of the difference between an audit and a survey, I don't think I'm qualified to be specific about that. But my sort of casual response would be an audit sounds a lot more precise to me than a survey.
Senator Altshuler? I don't think that is part of the bill, whether it's a survey or an audit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It came up in the previous discussion with the previous speaker. So I'm the senator from,
Okay, you went back to the previous speaker and asked the question.
I was clarifying, the question was
Okay,
asked about
fine.
surveys.
Fine. I just didn't see that that was part of the bill that we are discussing. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tracy? Britchie? Britch, okay. Britchie, okay.
K with a K sound.
Welcome.
My name is Representative Tracy Brickey. I represent the village of Pennacook, which is a ward of Concord. Let me just say that I did not have anything prepared, but as everybody was speaking before me and asking questions, I felt the need to come up. I will say, though, that Representative Damon stole an awful lot of my thunder, but that's neither here nor there. One thing that I did want to say is that I think that there's a disagreement between the title and the actual bill, the actual amendment here. This says gestational development from embryo to fetus through birth, and then on line 7 it says early fetal development. So that is sort of a disagreement there. I wanted to, and I'm not sure that this is appropriate, and you'll tell me to be quiet if it's not, but I am chair of my local school board, And when I get an audit, it almost always has things that I need to fix, and a survey doesn't. So that would be my thought there. And I guess without repeating, well, maybe I will repeat it because I think it's important to think about in terms of if we're talking about embryo, fetus to birth, then I think that we need to eliminate the abstinence, adoption. Maybe you could keep an adoption if we're talking about birth. Healthy relationships, I don't think that those are part of what should be included in this bill. I am opposed to this bill, and I would urge you all to defeat this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak? These are the ones that I have called who have signed up. Did you want to speak?
Next bill.
The next on the call. We haven't gotten to that yet. So, okay, that closes the hearing on House Bill 667.
I got confused because I thought her said it before, so I thought she wanted to be recognized for this bill. But it's for her next one, so that was me.
The House Bill 231 is the next one, and we have Representative Perez being the sponsor.
Can you pass those back?
Yeah.
Air conditioning, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Representative Christine Perez. I represent Londonderry. House Bill 231 is prohibiting school district personnel from transporting students to medical or mental health appointments, visits, or procedures without parental consent. This bill came out of House Education 12-4 and passed on a vote vote in the House. The bill prohibits transportation. It's designed to protect not only the child, but to protect the school personnel as well. First, we need to make sure that the school districts have in place a policy for emergency situations, not just training, but a policy for emergency. In checking with my town's districts, I found that their only policy was under student health services requirements and defines the role of the school nurse, which includes that injuries reported to the school nurse. The date on that was August 12, 2008. In talking to the school district, they told me, well, they learn when they learn CPR what to do in an emergency. And I said, well, that doesn't quite cover them legally, I do not believe. And this bill would protect them by letting them know exactly what the policy is for non-emergent transport and for emergent transport. This would cover non-emergent. I would hope that when they developed a policy that it would mean call 911 for emergent ones. I actually would like to see them to get a team together so that you have crowd control and what to do. But that being said, this bill would expand on the injury or illness policy to make it clear that the responsibility for transport is in the hands of the parent or the guardian and not the responsibility of school personnel. It also puts into place the need for the school districts to have a strong policy defining an emergency, health or medical incident protocol so that the staff are clear on what their expectations are in those cases. And that being said, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the committee members? Senator Prentice.
Thank you for taking my question, Representative Perez. When it comes to, medical emergencies or emergency situations in any setting, including schools, I have great interest. Now, I'm just curious because I have the statement from when this came out of eDNA, but when you heard this in the House, did anybody from Homeland Security and Emergency Management come? Because they have a whole.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Did anybody from Homeland Security or Emergency Management come? Because they have a whole dedicated section at HSEM that deals with school emergencies. Just curious if you consulted with them? If
I
they
did
gave
not.
Feedback?
I did not. What I did do is consult with some school districts. I had difficulty finding school districts in my local area that had any type of policy that was up to date in these things. But I did speak to several people who lived in Massachusetts who have real hardcore policies on emergency protocol. They have teams. So, you know, you may call, you're the person there, you may call 911. They have teams that come together. We used to have them in the hospital as well. And, you know, one person goes and takes care of the other kids. And, you know, one parent does, another staff member would come and do making sure that the doors were available for the emergency people to get in. This basically is non-emergent. This is non-emergent that you can't just transport a kid that may have something medical that comes up, that the parent, you can't transport them. You know, maybe it's your friend's kid and you think, well, maybe I can, maybe I can't. This makes it clear that you can't, no matter who you are, without parent permission, unless it's going with your emergency policy. And the feedback I got from teachers was really grateful that there would be a policy in place. In talking about one of the instances, you know, I said, well, they said they're always trained in CPR and that type of thing, and emergency. But what if in that classroom or on that playground or whatever, there was a substitute there? That's not a requirement to be a substitute. So if you have a policy in place, that protects any personnel that's there. So.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
for now, yeah.
Senator Schiller?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Perez, for taking my question. So this is related to, we covered a lot of information regarding emergency policy. We do have, there are protocols for that. So what you're asking is to require school districts to develop a policy that is for non-emergency? Is that your?
It's really, in some ways, requiring both, because the last sentence says, unless he or she is following a published school district emergency health or medical emergency protocol or policy. So this really, I didn't think it would have to require it. I would have thought that schools had that in place, but they don't. A lot of them don't. I know we do not in Londonderry. And I know it's my understanding they do not in Derry and they do not in Pelham. So those are the schools I checked with. Actually, it's requiring school personnel to know exactly what their responsibility is. What they were telling me when I was speaking and finding out, they said, well, what they're told to do is to call the school nurse. And if she's not available, you call the principal. And if he's not available, you call this policy was from 2008. And it really was not and it said nothing in it, not the policy at that school, nothing in it about an emergency protocol or policy of any type. So I guess basically it's making sure, although not mandating, that unless he or she is following a published school district emergency health or medical protocol or policy.
Can I follow up?
Follow up.
So, Representative Perez, you're from Londonderry.
I am.
And I'm hearing you say that you approached the Londonderry School Board to create
No, school district.
school district
Yes.
to create a policy, which are, school district policies are district by district. Is there something that happened in your district that has made you want to make this a statewide initiative instead of addressing it at the local level with your local school district?
I did not approach my school district, my school board about this. I spoke to the SAU office okay, about this. I do know that my school board is reviewing every policy. They've put this on the list of policies to be reviewed. They have policies going back to 1999. Policies need to be updated. And I even think from 2008 was a long time ago as well. Isn't that like 17 years ago now? I think a policy for emergency protocol when something happens is something that perhaps I worked ER and intensive care most of my career. A policy needs to be in place because the staff members need to be protected. And if they just said, well, you learned that when you did your CPR class, I don't think that's protecting them. And it's certainly not protecting the children. So I'm looking for this to be adopted that says that they cannot transport. It's a no-brainer. You can't. End of discussion. And then making sure that their policy says they cannot, but they also have an emergency policy.
May I follow up, Madam Chair?
One more follow-up.
Yeah, may I follow up? So, again, we understand emergency. This is not part of emergency protocols. This is directing response to non-emergencies. And there's nothing that spurred you to do this out of your district. This is
No, there's
just
nothing that spurred me to do this out of my
just came out
district.
of nowhere.
Well, no, it
Right,
didn't
like,
come out of nowhere.
Where, yeah, I'm just looking for what the origin is. When you oftentimes we say, well, what is the problem this is solving? That's what I'm looking for, is what made you want to do this? And,
I think,
rather than leave it to the school districts to do on their own. That's all.
I think because of having spent 42 years in the emergency medical profession, and maybe when my children were growing up, I wasn't quite as much aware of what was going on as far as policies and protocols were in school. But having grandchildren, now I want to make sure that they are protected. And I also know that teachers are on under a microscope, and this will make it easier for them to know policy says I cannot do that, or policy says I can do that. It's not well, the parent can't be here, we can't get in touch with them, why don't you just take them? It's a non-issue, you can't do it. So, any other questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I have one more person, and I can't, it's a beautifully written name, but I'm not sure I know what it says. Yeah.
R. Pacey or Perry? No speaking. Anyone less who signed up to speak who has not been called on? It is really lovely handwriting. Yeah,
It is such beautiful handwriting, I can't read it.
yes, it is.
It's cursive with very, okay. Anybody else sitting in here who wants to talk or speak on House Bill 231? Seeing none, thank you very much. Now we'll go to House Bill 571. And the prime sponsor is Representative Perez.
Thank you.
Yeah, who is this?
For the record, my name is Representative Christine Perez. I represent Londonderry. This bill would include Constitution Day in patriotic exercises in public schools. Right now, our public schools are required to have some sort of devoted exercises to patriotic nature, to Memorial Day, or to Veterans Day. And I'd like to include Constitution Day in that for several reasons. It's my understanding that the Constitution is taught in elementary school, and it may be picked at here and there throughout the rest of their career, and then possibly in civics or U.S. history. But I'm going to ask, and I don't expect you to answer, does anybody know when Constitution Day is? We all know when Memorial Day is and Veterans Day. Constitution Day is September 17th. I'm going to give you a little bit of history on the Constitution Day and why I think it's very important. In 1940, Congress approved American Day, setting aside the third Sunday in May for recognition, observance, and commemoration of American citizenship. The resolution originally specified the day to be Citizenship Day, but the Committee of Conference changed the name to I Am an American Day. In 1952, Congress renamed the holiday to its original proposed title of Citizenship Day and moved it to September 17th, an anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. In 1956, Congress, to encourage Americans to learn more about the Constitution, established Constitution Week to begin on Citizenship Day on September 17th. Moving forward, in 2004, Senator Robert Byrd sponsored legislation to establish September 17th as Constitution Day. So here we are, American Day, Citizenship Day, Constitution. It represents the importance of knowing about our federal Constitution as well as our New Hampshire Constitution and how they became and what the distinct honor of being a citizen under the Constitution means. What rights do we have exclusively because we are U.S. citizens? The freedom to express yourself, the right to vote in elections, the right to run for elected offices, the right to a prompt, fair by trial, and the right to live here in the United States are just a few. As well as our responsibility, we support and defend the Constitution, participate in democratic process, respect and obey federal, state, and local laws, reflect the rights, beliefs, and opinions of others. Unfortunately, Constitution Day is not a federal holiday, not that I think we need another federal holiday, despite attempts in 1987, but should not go unrecognized. And because I believe that the Constitution is the basis for everything we do here as citizens in New Hampshire, I believe that we need to constantly make students understand the importance of it, how it came to be. At the request of Representative, who was it? I forgot. Jess Edwards, he asked me to include the federal, to include about the Pledge of Allegiance, Veterans Day, Constitution Day, wait a minute, sorry, federal Constitution, New Hampshire Constitution, and as well as our rights and responsibilities that as citizens that we have. So, and he also asked me to include how the failures of the Articles of Confederation led to the need for the federal Constitution. And I think that's important, and because we really are the first Constitution, we need to know why the Articles of Confederation failed and how we need to, why our Constitution came about. This passed in Education 18-0 and passed on a House vote in the House, on a voice vote in the House. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Senator Prentice.
Thank you, Chair Ward, and thank you, Representative Perez, for taking my question. So I didn't know when Constitution Day was, so thank you for raising this, and
I wasn't saying that people didn't know.
Look, there's no need for me to be anything but more transparent, so thank you. So starting on line 6, just so I understand, where it says federal, so I see there's like, actually going further up, 5, 6, there's like state, state events that would include speakers, instruction, presentations, and other events as appropriate. I'm taking that as state, and then when it says starts, then after appropriate period, federal Constitution exercises may include. So, are you saying that?
May I ask you what amendment you're on? I'm sorry.
Oh, I am on. I'm looking at as introduced, actually.
Oh.
I think all I had was as introduced. So sorry. Can I borrow? As introduced.
This one here?
You have this amended, you have it introduced.
But I can't follow it if I don't have it.
So 25-0290, is that,
That's better.
That's not what I have.
that's not, what do you have?
0290.
Yeah,
Is
you
that
do,
the
right up
amendment?
there.
Is that the thing?
Yes.
0290, that's what.
290?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
as introduced to the Senate by the House.
Okay, so I am looking at,
Yeah, I think we got it.
Wait a minute, I lost mine too.
no, you're okay, it's just,
Oh, 0283.
I'm looking at it.
That must be as introduced.
Here you go.
Is that the previous?
So
What one are you all passing out?
As amended by the House.
Oh, okay.
There's another.
No, what you're passing out as amended by the House is we're talking about 571, House Bill 571, the Constitution Day, correct?
Well, we just got
Wait,
was 231.
231.
This is 231. That's doesn't.
Oh, that's
doesn't
wrong
belong
bill.
with This
Yeah,
one.
it's just a minute.
Wrong bill, right yours, wrong pew again.
Are you,
571 as introduced.
Okay, this one's.
Yes, okay.
We're looking.
It is 0290.
yeah, that's what I'm
Oh,
looking at.
okay, yeah.
We're all in the same pew. Okay. So just after appropriate, there's a period, and then it says federal constitution exercises may include recognition of the New Hampshire Constitution as well as exercises related to our rights and responsibility as citizens. So is what you're saying here, if there are events in New Hampshire that are recognizing or celebrating the federal Constitution, that they may, wrap in anything that's related to, or bring in the New Hampshire piece of this?
Yes,
Okay. All right. That's all I wanted to know.
it says instruction on the New Hampshire Constitution is there.
Right. But at federal constitution
Right,
related event, actually call them exercises.
Yeah.
So the exercises, events, or whatever point in recognition that is, it's just bringing the New Hampshire Constitution into the federal, you use the word exercise, so.
yes.
Which I'm fine with, I just wanted clarity. And I like that it says may. Okay, thank you,
Any other questions?
thank you.
Senator Altshuler.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Perez. So with Constitution Day, the U.S. Department of Education actually distributes federal funds so that states can hold U.S. Constitution Day programming. And so, it costs money to do stuff, and the federal government, up until now, we don't know, the U.S. Department of Education thought that this was something worthy of distribution of funds. Are you aware, did the Department of Education give you a clue or like a line item in their budget? Like, how much do we get for that? And how does that get distributed now? Or are they asking for it? Like, what's the connection?
Quite honestly, I don't know. And quite honestly, it came up as one of the questions in committee about how do you pay for this? And at that time, I did not know there were federal funds that were available for it. But I also think that, I'm having had grandchildren, paying more attention to what's going on now, having had grandchildren for Veterans Day and Memorial Day, they have speakers that come in that don't cost anything. They have volunteers that come in that, offer all kinds of things. I'm sure, I am almost positive, but only fools are positive. I am sure that this would not be a huge cost, if anything cost, other than they're not in class for it. They're actually at an exercise.
Follow up?
Follow up.
So, lovely, the idea to be able to do this kind of celebration and include this in curriculum for students. Would we not want to put in efforts to encourage all schools, particularly schools that receive state funding, to incorporate this Constitution Day into their curriculum as well, so that it was a statewide celebration?
I think that would be great. But I think it would be great. I live in a 55 community, 128 homes we own our home. Grandparents, yap, all the time. I actually know of a grandparent, when I said I was doing this months ago, when I was first putting it in, said, oh, they do that her grandchild goes to a Catholic school in Massachusetts. Oh, they had a big deal. They all dressed up, and signed the Constitution. So it is being done elsewhere. So I just want, everybody knows Veterans Day. Everybody knows Memorial Day. I just would like us to push the Constitution through all grades all the time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I
No,
gotta
we
make
still
it to.
have one more person with the same beautiful handwriting, and I still can't read it.
That's my
The gentleman in the way back.
That's me.
Did you want to
Oh.
speak?
On the bottom, that's me.
The what?
Yeah, Christine.
That's your?
Christine
Christine
Perez.
with a K?
Yeah, but
You
I
have
have to-
beautiful handwriting.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's a nurse's handwriting.
Okay,
And I think the one before it, the R was probably for rep.
mystery solved. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Go. Thank you. All right, I'm looking for Constitution Day. Wednesday, September 17th. All right.
That ends the
Hearing on 571.
hearing on House Bill 571. Now we'll go to 484, House Bill 484. Thank you. And the prime sponsor is Honorable Gary Daniels.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Good to see you all again. For the record, my name is Gary Daniels. I'm a representative from Hillsborough 43, representing the town of Milford. I'm also the prime sponsor of House Bill 484, which is relative to allocation and repurposing of career and technical education classroom space by local school districts. Under current law, RSA 188 E3-2 states that once a district has accepted funds from the state for the purpose of building space in a career and technical education class, that space must be used by the Career and Technical Education Center exclusively. The option of repurposing this space, as I understand it, would require the school district to reimburse the state for the space it is vacating. While I understand the purpose of this policy in the short term, I believe the policy could limit the opportunity for students in the long term. For instance, if the district offered a CTE class of, for instance, microbiology, in the interest of the students exceeded the capacity of that particular classroom, any district wishing to vacate the current space and build additional space to offer more opportunity for students would need to reimburse the state for the cost of the space that it is vacating. In other words, if you had 10,000 square foot classroom and you wanted to expand that to a 20,000 square foot classroom, the town would need to reimburse the state for that space. That seems to limit the ability of students to be able to participate in that class. In fact, in some cases, like my own hometown, the proposal was that we would need to tear down the newest part of the building to expand out. In this case here, taking two chemistry classes, tearing them down just to rebuild them in the newest part of the CTE that was proposed. That would be an unnecessary and an additional cost to the school district. So House Bill 484 simply adds a conditional language to RSA 188 E32 after the word exclusively, saying, provided that if space within the facility has been used by the Career and Technical Education Center exclusively for at least 20 years, such space may be repurposed by the district at no cost. This 20-year requirement in the amendment creates consistency with the statutory requirements pertaining to building aid, as well as ensuring that the initial investment by the state in the CTE class has benefited students, the school district, and the state for a significant amount of time. With the flexibility offered in this amendment, I feel that the state, school district, and students will all be winners in this initiative. So this concludes my testimony. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Questions? Any questions? Senator Altshuler.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Daniels. Curious about the 20 years. Why, I mean, it seems long that, you know, if you're using a space or repurposing the space, you know,
I had talked to Commissioner.
curriculum changes fast. So,
Originally, I just chose 20 years.
yeah,
As a random number. I had a subsequent conversation with Commissioner Edelblu, and he said, it's been used for 20 years. It seems though it's run its course. When I testified in the House on this bill, Chairman Ladd brought up that 20 years, it just happened to be consistent with the building aid too. So it all fit together well.
there you go. Thank you.
Well,
Seeing no other questions, thank you very much.
thank you.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 484. Now we'll go to House Bill 752. And the prime sponsor is, I think, Representative Cordelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. It's good to be back. This bill revises some aspects of current law related to charter schools and the process by which a charter school might be reviewed or even put on probation if there are problems with the school. This was worked up with the department based on their experience with a couple of charter schools. So in particular, I'll point out a few things. In Roman 1, I think it's starting on line 4 in your copies. Much of that is current law in terms of a notice and revoking a charter. H and I are new additions to that that indicate the school has failed to remedy causes of their probation. They can have their charter revoked. Or if the school is no longer in good standing with the charitable trust unit, nonprofits have to register with the Charitable Trust Association as well. Roman 2 is in current law as well as Roman 3. In Roman 4, a section has been added to this starting on line, I believe, 27 on your copy. The board may impose conditions on the charter that require the charter to address specific areas of concern. The department felt that they needed to be able to have that authority to notify the charter about areas of concern that they had. And that continues on to the next page, and the department ability to require an escrow account if it is determined that the school is in danger of failing. They would have the escrow account to pay for the closing and any expenses arising therefrom. Most of the rest of it is in current law, except for section 2 in the middle of page 2, which redefines what happens to records from a closed charter school. And basically the department would assume control of those records and set up a process by which students, former students, could get copies of those records. Sometimes that has been problematic in the few times where a charter school has closed. So this is really to really further tighten the process by which the Department of Education can exercise their role in monitoring the stability of charter schools. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from the Senator Sullivan?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. So I think a lot of this is good. My question is the intention to give the charter schools sort of guardrails to be able to get back on track before they have to,
Right.
before they get to, they're past the point of no return, sort of?
Right, they have to come up with a remedial plan, and that is monitored by the department. So, yes.
All right, great, thank you.
I have a question. How would the Department of Education learn that there is a problem with any of the charter schools?
They keep track, and I believe check on the charter schools annually, and might be contacted even by the charter school if they have questions or has a problem arisen. They might check in with the department themselves. I believe that has happened. There have been a couple of unfortunate incidents where it has been a surprise to the department that something has happened, and this is to prevent those surprises in the future.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience who wishes to speak on this one? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on HB 752. And we'll close the public hearing on these House bills. Thank you very much for coming.
I had the air conditioning on.
I felt it.
My first year here, we spent a lot of time talking about property, who owned the property, how it was managed, when it went from a public school to a charter school, how many feet, if it was empty, could it be turned over to a charter school? Well, this is,
I realized I missed this text.
got a privacy screen?
Huh?
Privacy.
Oh, yeah, we got that from Nick.
You're okay with
Totally missed it.
And what?
So you're okay.
I am Ruth. Thank you very much. I mean, that's the trauma prevention people would be very happy.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Usually a tough one in
You can drop it in. I missed it.
I'm actually gonna make a note
on
right now,
Tuesday. We have
so that it gets in there.
Gets questioned.
Okay.
yes, yes. We will have executive session in the morning on Tuesday,
Next week.
next week.
Okay.
Today is.
Today is, I need to just get by Friday.
This Tuesday.
Once Friday's over, I'm like golden.
So we have an executive session in the morning and then we'll do the other things that we didn't do.
Yeah. The conference is Friday, and when that's done, I can just go, toot, and then off to the line. All right, I'm gonna have. We could have used our little room. How come we came over here?
What?
We could have used the little room we normally use.